Valentine's Day. The one day a year where love is supposed to be a goddamn fairy tale. Flowers, chocolates, candlelit dinners. All that sweet shit women eat up like it's their birthright. I was never the mushy type, but after 5 years of marriage, I figured I should do something nice. Surprise my wife, Candace. She always bitched about how I didn't have a romantic bone in my body, so I thought, fuck it. Let's make this one special. I left work early, grabbed a dozen roses from some overpriced florist downtown, and even stopped at this little bakery she loved to get those red velvet cupcakes she always moaned about. The whole drive home, I was smiling like an idiot, picturing the look on her face when she saw me standing at the door, arms full of Valentine's bullshit. I should have known better. The second I stepped into our apartment, something felt off. Not just quiet, too quiet, like the kind of silence that clings to your skin, makes your stomach drop. I took a step inside, letting the door click shut behind me. Then I heard it. A noise, muffled but unmistakable, coming from the living room. A sound I hadn't heard in a long time. Candace, her breathy little gasps, the ones she used to make when I had her pinned beneath me. But I wasn't in that room. I wasn't the one making her sound like that. The flowers slipped from my hand, the roses scattering across the floor like a crime scene. My heartbeat pounded in my ears as I took another step forward, like a man walking to his own execution. And then I saw it. Candace, my wife, on the couch, her legs tangled around another man, his face buried in her neck, his hands gripping her in ways I fucking knew. The whole damn room smelled like sex and betrayal. I didn't even feel myself move, but suddenly, I was standing there, my voice like thunder. What the fuck? And that's when the real fun began. Time stopped. No, fuck that. Time didn't stop, it shattered. Candace's head snapped toward me, her eyes wide like a deer in headlights. The guy, some dark-haired, gym rat-looking motherfucker, froze mid-thrust, his face twisting into something between shock and panic. Jason, Candace stammered, her voice shaking, like she had the nerve to be surprised. I didn't say a damn word. My brain couldn't process words. The only thing pumping through me was rage. It crawled up my throat, sat on my chest, made my fingers twitch like they were itching to grab something. Someone. I looked at him first. The man, no, the piece of shit who was inside my wife, the woman I spent 5 fucking years with. He scrambled off her, reaching for his jeans on the floor. Look, man, he started. But I wasn't interested in whatever excuse was about to spill from his lips. Man? Don't fucking call me man. I lunged. He barely had time to react before my fist connected with his face. A sick, satisfying crunch, cartilage, bone. He grunted, stumbling back against the coffee table, knocking over a candle that sent wax flying onto the floor. Jason, stop! Candace screamed, scrambling to cover herself with a throw blanket. Like modesty was the issue here. I didn't stop. I grabbed him by the collar of his half-zipped jeans and yanked him up, ready to cave his fucking skull in. And then my phone rang. It was the stupidest thing, really. A normal, everyday sound, vibrating in my pocket, like this was just another Tuesday. Candace used my moment of hesitation to wedge herself between us. Please, please, let him go, she begged, her hands pressing against my chest. Jason, it's not what you think. I barked out a laugh, ugly, bitter. Not what I think. Oh, you mean it wasn't your legs wrapped around some random fuckboy while I was out buying you fucking cupcakes? Her face twisted. Just let me explain. My phone kept buzzing. I yanked it out of my pocket without thinking and saw the caller ID. Mom and Dad. Candace's parents. Her fucking parents. It hit me like a slap to the face. I didn't even hesitate. I answered. Jason. Oh, honey. Her mom's voice came through, all warm and oblivious. Just calling to see if you and Candy are having a lovely Valentine's Day. A laugh bubbled in my throat, sharp and manic. I stared at Candace, her face going pale as she realized what I was about to do. Oh, we're having one hell of a Valentine's Day, I said, my voice dripping with venom. How fast can you get here? And that's when the real chaos began. Candace's face drained of color so fast you'd think I pulled a gun on her. Jason, she whispered, eyes wide with panic. What the fuck are you doing? I grinned, cold and mean. Inviting your parents over for the show. Her mom was still on the line, completely oblivious to the wreckage that was our living room. Oh, that's wonderful, sweetie. We were just finishing dinner. We can be there in. Candace lunged at me, trying to snatch the phone from my hand, but I was faster. I sidestepped her, letting her stumble forward, nearly tripping over the damn coffee table. Make it quick, Joanne, I said into the receiver. Your daughter's got something special planned for Valentine's. I hung up before she could ask questions. Candace spun toward me, her face twisted in rage, her blanket barely clinging to her body. Are you insane? I took a step closer, lowering my voice to a dangerous growl. You don't get to call me insane, Candy. You are the one who decided to get railed on our couch, while your husband was out planning a surprise for you. The other guy, who, up until now, had been sitting on the floor holding his bleeding nose like a bitch, finally spoke up. Mann, listen. I turned on him so fast his mouth snapped shut. Who the fuck even are you? Candace sucked in a breath, eyes darting between us. I laughed, shaking my head. Oh, don't tell me. This wasn't just some one-time thing. Huh. I leaned in toward him, towering over him like a predator sizing up prey. You her little boy toy? How long has this been going on? Weeks? Months? The dude wiped at his nose, wincing. I don't know what she told you, but I didn't let him finish. My fist cracked against his jaw so hard that he went sprawling backward, knocking over a lamp. The room flickered in and out of shadows. Candace screamed. Stop it. Jason, you're gonna kill him. I turned to her, breathing hard. And that's a problem? The apartment was a goddamn mess. Candace was shaking, half-dressed, her lover barely conscious on the floor. I was standing over him, fists clenched, every muscle in my body screaming for me to do worse. And then, a knock at the door. All three of us froze. Already, Candace's parents must have broken every speed limit in town. She turned to me, breathless, desperate. Jason, don't do this.
Isterte her.
The woman I had loved. The woman I thought loved me. Another knock, louder this time. Oh, Candy? I murmured, reaching for the doorknob. This is just getting started. I threw the door open. And that's when everything went to hell. The second I yanked the door open, I expected to see Joanne and Thomas, Candace's perfect, suburbanist parents, standing there all wide-eyed and horrified. But nope, it wasn't them. It was the cops. 2 uniformed officers, standing on my damn doorstep, looking all official and serious. Sir, we received a disturbance call about a domestic dispute, the taller one said, eyes flicking past me into the apartment. And from their angle, oh, it looked bad. Real bad. Candace half-naked in a blanket. Some random dude on the floor, blood dripping from his nose. Me, standing there, fists clenched, chest heaving like I was about to rip someone apart. Fuck. Candace's eyes flickered with something. Fear, relief, I couldn't tell. But she was quick as hell to act, stepping forward with a tremble in her voice. This is a misunderstanding, she said, her hands clutching the blanket like she was some innocent victim. My husband he lost his temper. I laughed, loud and sharp. Oh, I lost my temper? You mean when I walked in and found you fucking some dude on our couch? The shorter cop, a guy with graying hair, sighed like he'd heard the story 1,000 times. Sir, we just need to de-escalate the situation. Can you step outside for a moment? I clenched my jaw. Are you fucking kidding me? Candace's boy toy, still on the floor, groaned. This guy's fucking crazy, man. That did it. I lunged at him again, and before I could get my hands around his scrawny neck, the cops were on me. Back up. Hands where we can see them. The taller cop grabbed my arm, twisting it behind my back, shoving me toward the hallway. And the whole time Candace just watched.
No im suri.
No, let me explain. Just her lips parted, her eyes big and wet, like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. Bitch. I was dragged out of my own goddamn apartment like some criminal, my heart jackhammering in my chest, pure rage buzzing in my skull. Then I heard another voice, her mother's voice. Jason. Oh my God. What's going on? I twisted my head just in time to see Joanne and Thomas running up the stairs, dressed all nice like they'd just come from some fancy Valentine's dinner. Joanne's perfectly curled blonde hair looked exactly like Candace's, and Thomas had that same judgmental squint his daughter inherited. And the second Joanne saw the cops pinning me against the wall, she let out this dramatic-ass gasp, clutching Thomas's arm. What is happening? She shrieked, looking between me and her half-naked daughter. Oh, this was gonna be good. Candace hesitated, her mouth opening and closing. And then she fucking said it. He attacked Josh. Josh. So the son of a bitch had a name. The older cop turned to me. Sir, is that true? I let out a breathless laugh. Attacked? Oh, buddy. I barely got started. Joanne's eyes bulged. Jason, what is wrong with you? I turned on her, shaking with fury. What's wrong with me? You're seriously asking me that? Maybe ask your daughter what the fuck she was doing with this asshole when her husband came home with fucking flowers in his hand. Silence. Dead fucking silence. Joanne's eyes slowly slid to Candace. Candace, who looked like she really wished she could disappear. Candy. Her mom's voice wavered. What is he talking about? I watched Candace swallow hard. Good. She had no way out of this. But just when I thought she'd own up to it, when I thought she'd finally admit what a lying, cheating, soulless bitch she was, she turned back to the cops and said the last thing I ever expected. I think Jason needs help. The whole world fucking tilted. I stared at her, feeling like my lungs had caved in. What? Candace sniffled. He's been acting unstable lately. Angry. She looked down like she was scared of me. I didn't want to say anything, but I think he might need professional help. Please, just don't make this worse. The younger cop nodded like that explained everything. And suddenly, I wasn't just the husband who caught his wife cheating. I was the dangerous, unstable husband. Candace had flipped the fucking script. And just like that, I was the villain. The whole world turned upside down. I stood there, my back against the wall, the cold, judgmental stares of two cops, Candace's dumbass lover groaning on the floor, and my wife, my fucking wife, spinning the whole story in her favor. She wasn't the cheater. She wasn't the liar. No, now I was the unstable one, the dangerous one, the problem. I felt the power shift, the way the cops looked at me like I was just another out-of-control husband with a violent streak. Candace played it well, her voice trembling, her hands shaking, her face full of regret, like she wanted to help me but just didn't know how. Fuck. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but my brain was short-circuiting. I could barely hear over the blood rushing in my ears. And then Joanne spoke. Oh, sweetie, she said, stepping toward Candace like she was some helpless child. Why didn't you tell us? I knew something was wrong. I could feel it. I laughed. Couldn't help it. A bitter, broken sound. Are you seriously buying this bullshit? Joanne turned on me like I'd spit in her face. Jason, lower your voice. You're not helping yourself.
Is der hier?
At them. This fucked up circus of betrayal. And the only thought running through my head was, how did I get here? How did I go from a man who loved his wife, who trusted her, to this? The older cop sighed. Sir, I think it's best if you step outside. Let everyone calm down. I shook my head, stunned. This is my fucking apartment. The younger cop nodded toward the hallway. Maybe you should get some air. I knew what they were doing, giving me a chance to leave before this turned into something worse. But if I left now, I was walking away as the bad guy, as the one who lost control, the abuser. And Candace? She'd be the victim. Fuck. No. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to breathe. If I didn't play this right, I was getting put in the back of a squad car tonight. So I swallowed the fire in my throat and stepped back, raising my hands slightly. Fine. You want me to step outside? I'll step outside. I grabbed my jacket off the hook, shoved past them, and walked out onto the front steps, the cold air biting into my skin. The door closed behind me, and suddenly, I was alone. I dug my fingers into my hair, breathing hard. My entire fucking life had just exploded in front of me, and somehow, I was the one who looked like the lunatic. I needed to think. I needed a plan. But before I could do anything, the door creaked open behind me. I turned, expecting one of the cops, maybe Joe, and coming out to guilt trip me some more. But no, it was Thomas, Candace's father. He stepped outside, closing the door behind him, hands stuffed in the pockets of his gray wool coat. His face was unreadable, eyes dark, calculating. For a second, we just stared at each other. Then he sighed, shook his head, and muttered, "You should have hit him harder." I blinked. "What?" Thomas exhaled, pulling out a cigarette. "Josh, you should have knocked his ass out." He lit the cigarette, took a drag, then gave me a look. "Don't tell Joe," and I said that. I just stood there, trying to process this new twist in my already fucked up night. "You knew," he scoffed.
Hell no.
"But I'm not stupid. I saw Candace's face when you said it. She's lying through her damn teeth." I clenched my jaw. "Then why the fuck didn't you say something?" Thomas gave me a slow, knowing look. "Because, Jason, I've been married to Joanne for 30 years. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that women like them." He pointed toward the door. "They will always find a way to make you the villain." I stared at him, and something dark, something ice-cold, settled in my chest. This wasn't about proving the truth anymore. It was about survival. Candace had declared war. She had rewritten the story to paint me as the monster. So fine, let's play. I took a slow breath, looking Thomas dead in the eye. "How do I win?" Thomas smirked. "Now you're asking the right questions." And just like that, I had an ally. The game had changed. Now it was time to burn her world to the ground. Thomas took another slow drag from his cigarette, the ember flaring in the darkness. I waited for him to tell me how to fix this, how to flip the script back to the truth. Not Candace's fairy tale where she was the poor, innocent wife with an unstable husband. He exhaled, the smoke curling into the cold night air. "You want to win, Jason? You don't fight fire with fire." I frowned. "What the fuck does that mean?" He smirked. "It means if you go in there swinging, emotionally, legally, physically, you lose. Candace already painted you as the bad guy. The moment you raise your voice, the moment you throw another punch, you prove her right." My fists clenched. "So I'm just supposed to sit back and take it?" Thomas shook his head.
No, son.
"You play the long game." I exhaled sharply, trying to keep my head from exploding. "Okay, fine. What's the long game?" Thomas flicked his cigarette into the street, then stepped in closer, lowering his voice. "First, you stay calm. You don't give Candace or those cops a single reason to think you're dangerous. You act cooperative, you act rational, and most of all, you walk away tonight." I clenched my jaw so hard my teeth hurt. "And then what?" He smirked. "Then we make sure Candace gets what's coming to her." I stared at him. "You really hate your daughter that much?" His expression darkened. "I love my daughter, but I know what she is." That stopped me cold. I had no idea what the fuck that meant. But before I could ask, the door swung open. The two cops stepped out first. Behind them, Candace and Joe hovered in the doorway, whispering to each other like a pair of witches brewing some fresh bullshit. The taller cop cleared his throat. "Mr. Hayes," he said to me, voice neutral. "We've talked with your wife. Given the situation, we're going to strongly suggest you find another place to stay tonight. Let things cool off." I swallowed the bile rising in my throat. "So you're kicking me out?" The shorter cop's mouth pressed into a thin line. "It's not a legal eviction, but it's what's best for everyone right now." I could feel Candace's smugness radiating off her like heat. She wanted me gone. She wanted me to disappear, so she could bury the truth and keep fucking her little boy toy without consequences. Every part of me was screaming to fight, to tell these cops to go fuck themselves and drag Josh's sorry ass into the street. But then Thomas's voice rang in my head. "You play the long game." I took a slow breath. Then I nodded. Fine. Candace blinked, surprised. She thought I'd explode, make a scene, get myself arrested. But I didn't give her the satisfaction. Instead, I turned to Thomas. Mind if I crash at your place? Candace's mouth dropped open. Joanne gasped. Thomas. Absolutely not. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. He cut her off smoothly. Let's go, Jason. And just like that, I watched my wife's plan crumble in real time. I didn't leave that house a villain. I left a man wronged. Thomas's house was way too nice for my taste. One of those big, sterile homes where everything looked like it belonged in a furniture catalog. I sat at his kitchen island, gripping a glass of whiskey while he leaned against the counter, watching me. So, I muttered, you gonna tell me what the fuck you meant earlier? Thomas smirked. About what? I gave him a look. About Candace. About knowing what she is. He sighed, swirling his own glass of whiskey. You ever notice how Candace never talks about her past? I frowned. What? Before she met you. Before college. Before everything. I shrugged. I mean, not really. I just figured she didn't have much to say. Thomas chuckled darkly. Yeah, because she's damn good at hiding things. A chill ran down my spine. What are you saying? He took a slow sip of his drink. I'm saying, Jason, that you're not the first man she's done this to. I went still. Thomas met my eyes. Candace has a habit, and it never ends well. I set my glass down, my hands slightly shaking. What the fuck are you talking about? Thomas leaned in, his voice dropping lower. I'm talking about the other husband. My heart stopped. I swallowed. What other husband? Thomas smirked. Exactly. And just like that, I realized something far worse than my wife cheating. I didn't even know who the fuck I had married. I stared at Thomas, the weight of his words sinking into my chest like cement. Other husband. The words didn't make sense. They felt like a glitch in reality. Something that shouldn't exist but somehow did. I swallowed, my throat tight. What the fuck do you mean, other husband? Thomas exhaled through his nose, taking another slow sip of whiskey. He wasn't in a rush. He let the tension sit, let me writhe in it. Finally, he set his glass down. You ever wonder why I never liked you? I frowned. That was not the answer I expected. What? He smirked, shaking his head. It wasn't because of you, Jason. It was because of her. Because I saw the way she looked at you. And I knew. He tapped the rim of his glass, thinking. I knew you were next. I felt something cold creep up my spine. Next? I repeated. Thomas nodded. Candace doesn't love Jason. She hunts. My whole body tensed. Start from the beginning. Thomas sighed, rolling his shoulders like he was about to drop a weight he'd been carrying for years. Candace was married before, he said simply. When she was 22. The air left my lungs. That was before I met her. Before she ever mentioned anything about a serious relationship, let alone a marriage. What happened to him? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Thomas's face darkened. He disappeared. The whole world shifted. I shook my head. No, what the fuck does that mean? Thomas leaned in. It means, Jason, that Candace's first husband, Mark Fisher, vanished off the face of the earth in 2015. One night he was there, living, breathing, married to my daughter. The next? Gone. No body.
No trace.
Just gone. My skin prickled. You think she? I don't know what I think, Thomas admitted. But I know this, Candace was the last person to see him. And 3 months later, she had moved on. Started dating some new guy, same pattern, same game. He sat back. She's done this twice before you. My pulse pounded in my ears. I wanted to call bullshit. To tell him he was fucking insane. That I would have known if my own wife had been married before. But deep down, something clicked. The way Candace never talked about her past. The way she avoided old friends, old places. The way she had latched onto me so fast, like I was some sort of project. Some next phase in a game I didn't even know I was playing. I swallowed hard. Why didn't you tell me? Thomas chuckled darkly. Would you have believed me? I clenched my jaw. No. He was right. If Thomas had told me a year ago, 2 years ago, that Candace had been married before and that her ex had vanished into thin air, I would have laughed in his face, called him a bitter old man who hated that his daughter married a guy like me. But now I was standing in the ruins of my life, watching history repeat itself. I ran a hand down my face, my breath unsteady. Jesus Christ. Thomas studied me. You get it now, don't you? I nodded. Slowly. Yeah. She's not just a cheater, Jason, he said. She's a predator. That word sent a shiver through me. Predator. I had spent years thinking Candace was just another spoiled, selfish woman who took more than she gave. But now, sitting here with her father, piecing together the ghosts of men who came before me, I realized this wasn't random. Candace broke men. And when they were useless to her, they disappeared. I set my glass down, my hands shaking slightly. I need to find out what happened to him. To Mark. Thomas smirked. Now you're thinking like a survivor. I looked him dead in the eye.
No.
I wasn't thinking like a survivor. I was thinking like a man ready for war. 3 hours later, 3:27 a.m. Couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Candace. Not the woman I married, the woman I thought I married, but something else. Something monstrous hiding behind a perfect smile. I needed answers. I grabbed my laptop from Thomas's guest room and started digging. I searched Mark Fisher. The results were thin, almost like he never existed.
No social media.
No missing persons reports. Just a handful of old public records confirming that, yes, he was real. And yes, he was married to Candace Parker. For 6 months. Then, poof, vanished. I kept digging, pulling up archived news articles. There wasn't much. Just a small 2015 police report that said Mark had been reported missing, but no evidence of foul play was found. I frowned. No evidence? That didn't make sense. I clicked the article, scanning through the details. Mark was last seen in his home. No forced entry. No sign of struggle. But the last part made my blood run cold. The last person to see him was his wife, Candace Parker, who stated that he left in the middle of the night without explanation. The exact fucking story she was pulling with me right now. I sat back, breathing hard. This was real. This was happening again. And I wasn't about to be the next Mark Fisher. I pulled out my phone, my fingers moving before my brain caught up. I needed to talk to someone. Someone who knew Mark. Someone who could tell me the truth about what happened to him. I scrolled through the search results, finally landing on a name.
Ellen Fisher.
Mark's sister. I found her Instagram, then her Facebook. She had posted about Mark once, years ago. A photo of them as kids with the caption, "I'll never stop looking for you." My throat tightened. I tapped the message button and started typing.
Ellen.
You don't know me, but I think I know what happened to your brother. I hit send. And just like that, I had thrown a match onto a pile of secrets Candace never wanted uncovered. The war had begun. The moment I hit send, my heart pounded like a war drum. I stared at my phone, watching the message sit there. Delivered. No response. Yet, I glanced at the time.
3:31 nachts.
Ellen Fisher probably wouldn't see this for hours. Maybe days. Maybe never. But I had taken the first shot. And there was no undoing it. 8:12 a.m. the next morning. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Mark Fisher. A man I'd never met. A ghost lingering on the edge of a past I never knew existed. By the time the sun cracked through Thomas's guest room window, I was already awake, staring at my phone like it held the answers to everything. Then, a notification. I grabbed the phone so fast it nearly flew out of my hands. Ellen Fisher. Who is this? My breath hitched. I tapped back fast. My name is Jason Hayes. I was married to Candace. I think she did something to your brother. I watched the 3 dots appear, then disappear, then come back, then, Ellen, what do you mean was? I frowned. Good question. Technically, Candace and I were still married. I was still legally tied to a woman who had potentially murdered her first husband. But I wasn't her husband anymore. Not really. Me. She cheated. Caught her. But that's not why I'm messaging you. I need to know what happened to Mark. There was a long pause. Then, Ellen, where are you? What the fuck? Me. Why? Ellen. Because I want to meet. This isn't something I can say over text. I clenched my jaw. I wasn't sure if I should trust her yet. But I needed answers. Quickly typed. Me fine. Where? 11:47 a.m. The diner. The place was a rundown off-the-highway diner. The kind with cracked vinyl booths and a permanent smell of burnt coffee. I walked in, scanning the tables. Then I saw her.
Ellen Fisher.
She looked like she hadn't slept in years. Dark circles under her eyes, messy brown hair pulled into a loose ponytail. But the moment she saw me, she froze. Like she recognized something in me. I slid into the booth across from her. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. You're the first. I frowned. The first what? Her hands trembled slightly as she gripped her coffee mug. The first one to ever reach out. A cold chill ran through me. You mean? I swallowed. I'm not the first man, Candace. Ellen shook her head, cutting me off. Jason, you're not even the second. My stomach dropped. Jesus Christ, I muttered, rubbing a hand over my face. How many?
Ellen hesitated.
That I know of? 3. I looked up at her, my pulse thundering. Including Mark? She nodded. Yeah, Mark was the first. I exhaled sharply, trying to steady myself. Tell me everything. She took a deep breath, glancing around like she was afraid someone was listening. Then she leaned in closer. When Mark and Candace got married, everything seemed perfect at first. She was the sweet, doting wife. But then, little things started happening. Mark became different. I tensed. Different how? Ellen's mouth pressed into a thin line. Paranoid. Jumpy. He'd call me at odd hours, saying he felt like he was losing his mind. That Candace was manipulating him, but he couldn't prove it. She'd gaslight him constantly, make him think he was forgetting things or overreacting. And then, one day, she swallowed hard. He called me, said he finally figured it out, that she wasn't just messing with his head, that she was planning something bad. I gripped the edge of the table. And then, her voice was hollow. And then, he vanished. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth would crack. Just like that. She nodded, eyes distant. Cops ruled it as a voluntary disappearance. No signs of foul play, no body, no witnesses. Just Candace's story. She said he left her. That he'd been mentally unstable, and she was worried about him. My blood turned to fire. It was the same fucking script she was using on me.
Ellen sighed.
At first, I thought it was just tragedy. Maybe he really did leave. But then, 2 years later, I heard rumors about another man. Another husband. She swallowed. And then another. I exhaled. Do you have their names? She hesitated. Just one. She pulled out her phone and slid it across the table. I looked down. The name on the screen made my entire body go cold. Daniel Price. No, that was impossible. I knew that name. I knew it because I had seen it before, on Candace's phone. 3 months ago. A random call that popped up late at night while she was in the shower. I asked who it was. She said, wrong number. I looked at Ellen, my mouth dry. Where is he now? Ellen's face darkened. Nobody knows. A sharp, stabbing feeling shot through my ribs. She leaned in, voice low. Jason, if you don't leave now, if you don't get as far away from her as possible, you'll be next. I inhaled sharply. No, I shook my head. I'm not leaving. Ellen's expression twisted. What? I met her gaze, my jaw tight. I'm not running. My fingers curled into fists. Candace wants me gone? She wants me to disappear like the rest of them? I shook my head. Fuck that. Ellen looked at me like I was insane. You don't get it. She's dangerous, Jason. I leaned forward, my voice steady. So am I. I pulled out my phone, scrolled through my contacts, found Candace's number. Then I hit call. Ellen's eyes widened. Jason, What the fuck are you doing? The phone rang once, twice, then, hello. Candace's voice, sweet and calm, like she hadn't spent the night destroying my life. I exhaled slowly. Hey, baby, I said, my tone cold. We need to talk. Game on. Candace's voice dripped with fake sweetness. Jason? She said, like she hadn't spent the last 24 hours rewriting history to make me the villain. You okay? I could hear it, her playing the concerned, loving wife. The one who told the cops I was unstable, the one who clutched a blanket around herself and whispered, I think Jason needs help. I gripped the phone tighter, my knuckles white. I'm fine, I said, keeping my voice controlled. I just want to talk. Silence. Then, where are you? That's when I knew. She wasn't asking because she cared. She was asking because she needed to know how much damage control she had to do. I glanced at Ellen, who was watching me with wide, nervous eyes. I could practically hear her screaming, don't tell her.
So elite.
At a motel, I said. Needed some space after last night. Candace sighed, and for a second, I could almost picture her closing her eyes, rubbing her temples, playing the exhausted wife dealing with her difficult husband. Jason, she murmured. I know you're upset. I know what you think you saw. What I think I saw. My vision blurred red. You don't have to say anything. I cut in, my voice low. I get it. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe we just need a little time apart. Silence. Then, you really think that? A test. She was testing me. Yeah, I said, forcing my voice into something soft, pliable. I mean, I don't want to throw everything away, Candy. 5 years of marriage? We can come back from this. If you want to. She hesitated. Then finally,
Ido.
Of course she did. Because if I left for real, if I ran, she'd have no control over me. And Candace? She didn't like loose ends. Cleared my throat. We should meet. Just us.
No caps. No parents.
Just talk. Another pause. Then she said something that sent ice through my veins. Come home. I inhaled sharply. I don't think that's a good idea. She laughed softly, and something about the sound made my stomach turn. Come on, Jason. It's still our home, isn't it? My heart pounded. I thought about Mark Fisher. I thought about Daniel Price. I thought about what Candace does to men who stop being useful to her. I thought about how she must be sitting there, right now, in that apartment, planning, waiting. I had no doubt in my mind that if I went back, I'd never walk out again. I'll think about it, I said. Candace sighed. Okay, baby. Just call me later. Okay? I clenched my jaw. Okay. Then I hung up, and immediately turned to Ellen. She's going to try to kill me.
Ellen swallowed.
Yeah, she is. 1 hour later, the plan. I didn't waste time. I had one shot to get ahead of Candace before she made me disappear the way she did the others. So I did what I did best, I planned. I needed evidence. Proof that Candace wasn't just some cheating wife. That she was something much worse. Where did Mark live? I asked Ellen. She hesitated, then pulled out her phone. Just outside of Chicago. I can get you the address. Why? I exhaled. Because I'm going there. She blinked. Jason, that was years ago. There's nothing left. I need to see it for myself, I said. I need to understand what happened to him. Ellen hesitated, then finally nodded. Fine. I'll come with you. 4 hours later, Mark Fisher's house. The place was a rundown shell of a home. The kind that hadn't been lived in for years. The front yard was overgrown, the windows were boarded up, and the whole thing had this rotting energy. Like whatever happened here had sunk into the walls. Ellen unlocked the door with an old key and pushed it open. The smell hit me first. Dust. Stale air. Something faintly rotten, like old wood and mildew. This is where they lived? I muttered, stepping inside. Ellen nodded, her arms crossed tight. Yeah. I scanned the room. There was nothing left.
No furniture.
No pictures. Just empty spaces where a life used to be. Then I noticed something. A section of the living room floorboards looked off. Too new. Too clean. I exchanged a glance with Ellen. She noticed it too. I stepped forward, pressed my foot down, creaked just slightly. Then I dropped to my knees and started prying it up.
Ellen gasped.
Jason, what are you doing? Crack. The board snapped, coming loose. And that's when I saw it. Something small, tucked just beneath the floor. A phone. I reached in, my heart hammering. It was old, the kind from nearly a decade ago. The screen was shattered, but when I pressed the power button, it lit up. A name flashed across the lock screen. Mark Fisher. My stomach dropped. I turned to Ellen, holding up the phone. I think I just found your brother's last words. She sucked in a breath. Oh my God. I tapped the screen, trying to access anything. The battery was almost dead, barely clinging to life. I swiped through the messages. Nothing. The call logs. Nothing. Then, the Notes app. I tapped it. One note. Dated March 14th, 2015. I clicked it open, and what I read made my blood run cold. Note from Mark Fisher. If you're reading this, she got me. My name is Mark Fisher, and my wife, Candace Parker, is going to kill me. I looked up at Ellen, my hands shaking. We have her, I whispered. And then, my phone rang. I jumped. My pulse spiked. I looked down. The caller ID said, Candace. Ellen's eyes widened. Don't answer. But I already knew. She knew I was looking. She knew I had found something. And now, Candace was about to make her next move. The phone buzzed in my hand. Candace. Ellen shook her head, eyes wide. Don't. I exhaled slowly. Then, without a word, I hit answer. Silence. Then, you should have stayed gone, Jason. Her voice was calm, steady, like she'd already decided how this was going to end. I clenched my jaw. I know what you did. A soft chuckle. Do you? I gripped Mark's phone, my fingers tight around the edges. Mark, Daniel, the others. I know everything, Candace. It's over. She sighed, almost bored. Jason, sweetheart, you still don't get it, do you? The hairs on my neck stood up. Then, a knock at the door. I froze. Ellen sucked in a sharp breath. Jason. My blood turned to ice. Because this house? It was abandoned. No one should have known we were here. Except Candace. My breath shook. I put the phone back to my ear. Open the door, baby, she whispered. The call dropped. Ellen grabbed my arm. We have to go. Now. But I was already moving. I wasn't running. I wasn't hiding. I was ending this. I reached into my jacket. My fingers wrapped around cold steel. The gun was heavy in my hand. Candace wanted to play games? Let's fucking play. I stepped toward the door and swung it open.